Welcome everybody to our latest monthly installment of our APS DBIO online workshops slash events that we try to have a different flavor for different events to capture things that would be of interest to different members of the DBIO community and beyond. So all events are open to everyone. I'm Nancy Ford. I'm a professor of physics at Simon Fraser University. And I have the privilege of being the chair of our engagement committee. And I just thought I would show those of you who may be unfamiliar with our events, how you can learn more if you're interested in other things. So if you Google APS DBIO, you get taken to this page, the Division of Biological Physics homepage. And there's a number of different buttons, but of relevance to this is workshops and networking. So if you click on that link, you'll be taken to a list of all the events we've hosted online over the last 2 years, including this one for today. The next event will be happening in January, particularly targeted at postdocs. We have an event coming up in February that's about gaining soft skills in your training. And what's kind of perhaps nice and interesting for you is that all of these past events are also recorded, much as today's is. And so if you want to learn more about an event that has happened, you can click on the link and see the YouTube recording. So today's event will also be recorded for the benefit of many people who are interested but are not able to attend in real time. So today's event is organized by one of our members of the engagement committee, Sarthak Gupta, and he came to me at the March meeting and said, hey, we should do something about outreach. And I said, that sounds like fun. You want to organize it? So here we are. And I'm going to turn the floor over to him now to run the show today.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Yeah, it was so much fun talking to in March meeting and figuring out people that thinks similarly to me and about outreach. So yeah, we have a fantastic panel today. Thank you so much for the panel members to giving their time and expertise. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll learn so much more about your approaches and things. I was thinking I'll go through a brief introduction of the panel members, and then we can start maybe questions and talk about presentations and different things that we are all excited about. So we have 4 people in our panel, as you might have seen in the explanation of the event. So first is Professor Lorna Dogan. She's a professor at University of Leeds, professor of physics at University of Leeds. She's also director of research and innovation and Bragg Center Creative Labs academic lead. She works in developing tools to explore emulsion mechanics in living systems, multi-skill mechanics in living system, and to study hierarchical biomolecules in self-assembly. She has been involved in various biophysical outreach events and teaching, such as biophysics project design, luminaries, and I can't wait to hear about those things. Other panel member that we have is Professor Lisa Lapidus. She's a professor of physics and professor of physics in Department of Physics, and also professor in Biomolecular Science Gateway at Michigan State University. She works in studying early stages of protein folding and unfolding. She has developed and involved in various, again, outreach and teaching regarding biophysics, and had developed this really cool curriculum for undergraduates, physics at molecular and cellular level, called P at MCL, which I'm again very excited about hearing that. We met at my last March meeting and talked for like hours on this thing. It was so much fun. Thank you for giving me your time. Third panel member that we have is Professor Greg Morrison from Department of Physics at University of Houston, Texas. He works on single molecular biophysics using theoretical statistical approaches, and also study interconnected systems using network theory. He has been involved in Frontier in Science program and also a faculty advisor at University of Houston chapter of Society of Advancement of Hispanics and Native Americans in Sciences, and does high school visits with that program. Frontier of Science program is there in my current institution, Rice University. So I'm excited to hear about that as well. And last but not least, Professor Ray Robertson Anderson. She's a professor of Physics and Biophysics Program Director and Chair at Department of Physics and Biophysics in the University of San Diego. She works on molecular level mechanics and transfer properties of biopolymer networks, and among other things, APS DBIO is like organizing Squishy Science Day at upcoming APS March meeting, and she's one of the main organizers of the event. I'm really excited to hear about that as well. Maybe I missed my introduction. So yeah, I'm Sarthak Gupta. I have, yes, sorry about that. I'm Sarthak Gupta. I am a Center Fellow at Center of Theoretical Biophysics at Rice University. I recently started my postdoc and having fun there. So, okay, I'll open the floor with a question since our panel members are from different institutions and at different level or different types of outreach, different flavors of that. I'm really excited about that. So I want to start maybe from Lorna. Like how did you started with biophysics outreach programs and teaching, and how did you get involved in these things to begin with?
That's a really great question, and thank you for the introductions. I'm so happy to be here. Can you hear me okay, everyone? Yes. Okay. So please guide me. Is it appropriate to pull up a slide or not pull up a slide?
Sure.
I've not.
Please.
I'm going to pull one slide up because I think it might help with what I'm going to say. So let me get it. So I'm interested, Sarthak, in what brought us all here, and how we found our way to biological physics, or what guided us to find our way here. And I'm maybe more interested in who is not finding their way to biological physics and what we can do, especially with outreach and education, to diversify the environment that we find ourselves in. So I wanted to share this paper, and a colleague brought this to my attention a few years ago. So this was a study that was done, and it talked to young people in high school about their aspirations, what they enjoyed, and it took all of that data and it came up with an idea of 5 tribes. And the first one we might identify with a little bit. They were named the STEM devotees, and they were sort of described as focused achievers. They aspired to continue in STEM. They saw the value of STEM, and maybe we are part of that tribe. But what about the other tribes? And here you can see some of them. And I'm particularly interested in actually all of them, but if I can draw your attention to, for example, the social artists. So these are academically really capable young people. They're socially conscious and creative, but they don't aspire to go into STEM. They don't see STEM as being a place for them. So I'd quite like to understand why not, but I'm also interested in how we can adapt the way we do outreach, the way we do our education, to perhaps retain some of the talent of some of these other tribes, so that we're not just drawing cookie cutter versions of ourselves, but we're bringing in some new ideas, some new approaches to the way we do STEM education and the way we do STEM research as well. So your question was, how did I get in to this? I sort of I never really know how to answer that, but this is one answer that I'll give today in the context of this panel. Why are we here, and why are there people missing, and what can we do about that? And I'll maybe stop there.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Does anybody else want to chip in? How did they started in this? Lisa?
Sure, I can talk. It's a little more focused. So let me share a slide.
Sure.
Oops, sorry. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So what we've been working on for the past several years is a little more focused on that. We're still looking at the STEM devotees, but they're the biologists and pre-meds and that sort of thing, undergrads, who really don't like physics. And So what we did is we tried to revamp the introductory physics curriculum that's required for all life science majors at MSU. And what we've come up with is this idea that we should be focusing on the physics at the molecular and cellular level. And here's sort of the reasons why. Let's see if I can advance. Yeah. So I assume at most of your universities, you know, life science students are usually required to take 2 terms of physics. That's also what's required for medical schools. And we usually teach a very traditional curriculum that's the same material that was taught decades ago. And it's really intended more for a physical science audience. So you tend to teach 16th century ballistics, so you can hit the castle with the cannonball, and 19th century electrostatics, so that you can spark things, and a lot of grab bag topics that are really more suitable for engineering, and there's hardly any biology in the curriculum usually. And I like to describe the biology that usually gets incorporated as trees and skeletons. You know, what makes things stand up, what makes things move, how does a tree move water around. In order to actually understand that, it tends to be highly simplified. So really, this is, I think, a sense of outreach in that, you know, the physicists who are on this call have to try and talk to the biologists, the biology students, and convince them that physics actually matters to the biology that they're interested in. And so what we've discovered is that you can actually talk about molecular biology much more easily in a physics curriculum, particularly if you incorporate computation. So just to give you a little overview, the focus of the first semester, which is usually mechanics, we actually focus we make a theme of the semester to be diffusion, and we use that as a basis for statistical mechanics. And the second semester, which is usually E&M, we focus on electrical dipoles, which is the basis for molecular interactions with light. And these are all examples that these students are actually somewhat familiar with from their introductory biology class and their introductory chemistry classes. And I'll just throw this up here. This is a website that has all the materials that we've put in our curriculum, so it's freely available to everyone. We are starting to work on a actual public outreach adaptation of this curriculum, looking at the diffusion aspect. And we're going to test that out this year at a science festival that MSU hosts. But I would have to say that my perspective right now is mostly from the perspective of having to teach reluctant undergraduates physics. So I'll stop there.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa. Like teaching undergraduate as a TA, I understand. Non-STEM majors, it was very, I'm still trying to find the ways to attract them to biophysics and let them, encourage them to take that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Greg, do you want to chip in?
Yep, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and attempt to share slides. We'll see whether or not I can pull this off. Let's see. Try this and share. And then hopefully this is working.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So yeah, my name's Greg Morrison. I'm an associate professor at the University of Houston. I'm also affiliated with CTBP, and I run the Frontiers in Science program, and I'm also faculty advisor for SACNAS. I'm going to talk about both of those very briefly. So yeah, let's go ahead. University of Houston. So we have University of Houston's a Hispanic serving institution. We have around 45K students, and about a third of them are Hispanic or Latino. We're also a 5-minute drive from Texas Southern University, which is a HBCU. And very close to Rice University, which houses CTBP, as well as the medical center. So there's a lot of possibility for interaction between for students to actually interact with really the cutting edge of biophysical research here. Let's see. One of the reasons that I got involved with the sort of outreach effort is essentially, you know, we do pretty well at University of Houston of ensuring that we are graduating undergraduates that are underrepresented minorities to ensure that we're having a positive impact on diversity in physics and in biophysics. But we're actually pretty bad at graduating PhDs. And I'm not trying to pick on UH here. This is very likely to be the case for your university as well. It's just we don't have a lot of domestic PhD students, and that's also true in biophysics. So what I want to do, what efforts I make is based on trying to either attract students into biophysical research as freshmen, or trying to support them as they're progressing to go on to grad school and be successful in that. In order to support them, one of the ways that I'm involved in this process is the Frontiers in Science program. So this is an outreach effort by the Center for Theoretical Biological Physics. It's a 10-week summer internship program. We pay the students for their efforts, and we recruit only from local minority serving institutions. So that's TSU, UH, community colleges in the area, and a few other schools in the area. This is the class of summer 2023. Essentially, each of these students was paired with an individual CTBP postdoc or senior graduate student, and they worked on a project together for 10 weeks. Essentially, that project is not a cookie cutter project. It is the actual research that the mentor is hoping to develop. So a lot of this was either, a lot of these projects are either extensions of already published work or a new idea that the grad student just wants to explore. And so they are really doing cutting edge research. They present a poster in a competition. Last year we had, I believe, 75 people attend the poster competition, so it's a pretty well attended event. Our goal is to get them interested in biophysics, so they come from all different departments: chemistry, physics, biology, and computer science and math. And we expose them to these ideas. A lot of them come in wanting to get a medical to be doctors, basically, and we convince them that research is more fun. So it's a pretty positive impact. It's been a successful program. I've been involved since 2020. Prior to that, Dr. Margaret Chung, who's in the leadership of DBIO, was running this program prior to my involvement. I'm also faculty advisor for SACNAS. I became faculty advisor for SACNAS because I'm very interested in high school outreach, and I realized early on that the interaction with inner city schools it is helpful for me to show up, but it is helpful for me to have students that can address the concerns realistically of the high school students. And so I started partnering with SACNAS. They asked me to be faculty advisor. This year we won Chapter of the Year for all the outreach efforts that we do. So we're very proud of that. But essentially, these students have really given me a lot of guidance on what are the actual needs of the University of Houston students in a way that allows me to tailor things. We still use research-based research-driven methods for supporting students, but really a lot of the ideas are coming from these undergraduates for projects that we do. And so I'm happy to be on the panel. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'll try to figure out how to stop sharing.
Thank you so much for sharing, Greg. Ray, how did you started doing?
Hi, everyone. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone who's talked so far has these very well thought out, established outreach initiatives targeting specific audiences, and, mostly in like high school and undergraduates and developed curriculum. I'm kind of on the opposite extreme. I'm much more interested in engaging the public, and, like small children, families, in just trying to get out the word that science is fun and physics is fun, and that like what biophysics and soft matter physics, it's physics, and they don't think about all these things in our daily lives. People don't really associate with physics. And so, and I really just got involved in it because it's fun. And it's sort of like my, my outlet, and just seeing the like joy in the kids' faces when you like, light a pickle on fire or something like that, they love it. But so one of the reasons Sarthik asked me to join is because I'm not sure if everyone is aware. I think everyone is either like a DBIO member or I guess everyone here is a DBIO member. So you should have seen the announcement from APS, but I'm organizing, we're hosting, I'm gonna share my screen and show the flyer. So this is the joint effort. This is the very first joint effort between DBIO, DSoft, DPoly, and GSMP to host an outreach event the day before the March meeting starts. And so can everyone see this flyer? Yeah. So we're calling it Squishy Science Sunday, and it's really to target school age children, families, and the public. All of the time that these March meetings, 12,000 physicists descend on some city, and half the time people don't even know that it's happening, except that there's a bunch of people with name badges walking around. And so we're going to have this at the convention center. And right now, if there are people interested in getting involved, we have a number of tables and demos, like lead organizers, but we're looking for lots of other volunteers. And so you would have to just come out the day before the March meeting. And if you have ideas of demos and activities and things like that, we're open to that too. But also, this is a great idea if you just want to kind of like get your feet wet in outreach and you're already coming to the March meeting, come out a day early and help us with the event. And so, yeah, we're hoping that this is kind of the inaugural event and we're going to be able to keep doing it year after year. So feel free, reach out to me if you are interested in getting involved, or if you have potential sponsors that you think might be interested. And then the other fun outreach thing that I started about a year ago. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen again. So this was something I attended the APS Leadership Summit, and so this is find it. Hold on. So any officer. So I'm Secretary Treasurer of DSoft, and so all the officers of all the APS units get invited every year to this leadership summit in January. And I was inspired. So they were talking a lot about engaging the public in physics. And when you think about this, the astrophysics community does a phenomenal job of getting out there. There's all these beautiful pictures, and they hire graphic designers and do all this amazing stuff. And the biosoft community doesn't really have that. But what are other ways that we could just make an impact, meeting the public where they are? And I was also inspired because they talked about, I cannot find, let me share. No, I just want to stop this, close it. Okay, let me see. What do you see? Do you see? No, you're seeing a postdoc ad, aren't you?
We see DSoft research spotlights. It's like a
okay.
Google.
Oh yeah, that's not what you want to see. All right, so you can see I've been multitasking. All right, let me stop my share.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things, so I was always very opposed to social media. I felt like it was a very big time sink, and people got obsessed with it, and I didn't even want to try to do anything with social media because I felt like I would just again be a time sink, and there's a lot of crap on there and stuff. But a lot of the general public, that's how they engage, and a lot of them turn to social media, and they turn to TikTok and Instagram to learn about science, and lots of times it's kind of not really good stuff out there. And so I started a TikTok channel, and I was also kind of nervous. I was like, I don't do this kind of stuff. But I just think if anyone wants to, just try it. Worst case scenario is no one watches it, and then everything's you're no worse for wear. So I started this channel, Physics Mama, and the idea is that one, I wanted to show that physicists are not just old white men, but also, so I have two young kids, and so the idea was to have little 2-minute videos where I describe some everyday physics concept that was inspired by a question one of my kids asked. And since then, my cousin, their cousins have gotten involved and stuff like that. But so this is just something I thought I started last January, and I've been trying to post every week. But it's a lot of fun. And also if people are kind of afraid to start their own TikTok channel and you want to get involved, I've had other people, you know, like contribute questions and things like that. So again, if you are interested in just trying it out, you know, you can video a question or like video some you know, daily phenomenon. And like if you have any cool videos that you want to say, like, why don't we explain this? I'd be happy to feature you or your question, or, you know, talk about just like how to get started. And it's actually a really fun creative outlet. You know, I've learned a lot about like video editing and things like that. But also if you have kids or just people that are generally need to learn about science in a very simple way, you can share with them my channel. All right, so that was very low level compared to everyone else's, but that's my jam.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Ray. Like TikTok sounds scary and fun both to me. No, thank you so much for everyone sharing their involvement in different things. It seems like we have a wide range of experiences. One of the things that, so I was involved in my, during my PhD days, I was also involved in outreach into high schoolers, and we used to go and talk about biophysics concepts, diffusion, viscoelastic, and all these things. One of the things that I noticed during my experience of that was high schoolers and undergraduates were reluctant to biophysics because somehow it doesn't sound cool as other things in physics, and they really don't want to learn a lot of jargon. And that's where I used to think that was one of the bottlenecks we need to figure out. What are the challenges you guys were facing when you start developing these different things or start interacting with students, and how did you overcome them? Yeah, I want to know that if you can comment on that. We can start maybe Greg. Do you have anything?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say that whenever I talk to high schoolers, there are two kinds of conversations that I have. One is if I only have 3 or 4 minutes, really the whole goal is just to get them vaguely interested in physics. And so, you know, there's small demos that I do that have nothing at all to do with biophysics. They're just intended to be fun, catch their attention for a little bit, and then I say physics is fun. If I have 15 minutes or so to talk, though, what I try to do, the most common thing that I try to do whenever it comes to biophysics is most of the time when I'm talking to high schoolers, they are high schoolers that are taking physics. They've gotten to the point where they know what work is, right? F times dx. And so I give the example of what I normally see students struggle with in my classes, which is if I'm holding an object still, why does my arm get tired, right? If I'm not doing any work, why is my arm tired? And I think that is a very good lead into biology, because the reason is that you're using chemical energy. There's myosin, and myosin is doing actual physical work in your muscles, and so I demonstrate that. And I find that that's a useful way to get into the idea that there is a connection between physics and biology. And so I talk generally about that's how I lead in, and then I just talk about the different scales of biology. So you can get biophysics from molecular to organism scale, and talk a little bit about coarse graining, because that's what I do. But generally, you know, I try to avoid anything that is particularly complicated. But I will, you know, I think one of the important things, though, is to have a story at the beginning that makes sense to them, that there is a connection between biology and physics that's actually meaningful.
Oh, very interesting. Lorna, you were talking about the artists. How are you involving them, and like what are the challenges you found while developing these things?
Sure. So I realize I answered your question very literally, or maybe this is a cultural difference on the panel. So you asked at the beginning how I got into this. So I started with a philosophical question, but I didn't actually tell you anything about what we're doing like everyone else has. So maybe just to give it a bit of context, I'll share that. I'll share that now so that it makes a bit more sense. Okay, so at Leeds, so I'm based in the north of England in the University of Leeds. I'm in a physics department, and my research area is soft matter and biological physics. And one of the projects we're working on is the Maker Kit project, and the aim is to give people some materials in a kit And those kits are, those materials allow them to explore a current area of research, which is often related to biological physics because that's my interest. And we send those kits out into the community, to families, to young people. We actually generally steer clear of schools because we think schools are very well served by other programs here in the United Kingdom. And the idea of the kits is that they can explore a topic and make something and share that with us. And that making process allows us both to understand each other and allows really interesting questions to emerge. So I'll give you one example, and it relates to, Lisa talked about diffusion and its relationship to statistical mechanics. So the way I learned about random walks and self-avoiding random walks was either with a piece of graph paper and a dice or doing a little bit of coding, and we wanted to scrap that and take a different approach. So we developed a kit around embroidery that allows people to create a self-avoiding walk through stitching. And this act of switching the making to something slightly different allowed us to really engage a very different range of people out in a community environment. And just to highlight, in terms of this was related to your question. Let me link back to your question, Sarthak, which is, how do you engage with either undergraduate students or PhD students on this topic? So the people that actually worked on this particular maker kit were two PhD students, Krista Cook and Krista Brown and Kalila Cook. Krista's now at Boulder, Colorado for a postdoc, and Kalila's just getting started with a postdoc. And so I think what was really nice is they were able to take a step away from their current PhD projects at the time, work on a different problem in biological physics and think about how to communicate that to a new audience. And I think that's hugely empowering to give people that opportunity to communicate something different from their current research. And then the people on the receiving end, they're not necessarily hearing from people that think about this all the time and perhaps have forgotten how to communicate it because it's so familiar, it's so ingrained. But they're hearing it from fresh voices that have perhaps understood it more recently. That sounds a bit ageist, but I didn't mean it to. And so Ray, you mentioned the APS meeting. So it's interesting because the soft matter have had this gallery of soft matter at the APS meeting for the last couple of years. So we actually displayed some of the self-avoiding walks that had been created during the pandemic, where people in the communities had created their own embroidered saw stitches. So we put that together into the form of a video and some of the pieces that were created by the public. And it was amazing because it was on display. As you said, there were 16,000 attendees, virtual and in person at that meeting. So it was an incredible opportunity actually, and to link it through to the biological physics that we're interested in, which is the diffusion of proteins to form networks and materials.
Yeah, that's a great plug, Lauren. If I can just interrupt, for if people are another way to do outreach, like get involved in this gallery of soft matter. They're these big monitors, and you can display. It doesn't have to be like research that was published in Science or Nature or something. It's just like showing the beauty of biological physics and soft matter physics. And yeah, they're also displayed on the website and on like Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great exposure and a way to engage people. Sorry,
yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned social media. Even if social media is not your thing, then APS can take that image, and even after the meeting has happened, they can display your poster or your video. And of course, they reach a huge audience. And I think it's also important that we're, I guess, proud of the research
and we put it on
we do.
t-shirts.
We put it on t-shirts next year. I saw that actually. It's important that we communicate our research to the physics community and show them what we're proud of, what we're excited about. So I'll just, one more slide is to show we've got a whole range of these different kits exploring different aspects of research, and it's really allowing us to work with different organizations. So again, rather than science festivals. We try to go out to different kinds of festivals, because, you know, I go to science festivals, I take my kids to science festivals, and you know, we're already very well served. So we want to get out into museums and libraries and music festivals and reach different people and share some of the research that we do. So I've sort of answered your question, and I've told you a little bit about what we do.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll go to Lisa. So yeah, I had this question. Like when you develop courses for biological students and they don't want to study physics, like how do you convince them, hey, this is cool and it will help you? Like how did you approach that?
Well, we do have a captive audience because they have to take the class, so they don't have to love it. But I think we do try to get them to see the relevance of the biology very, very early. So I think one of the problems that many physics curricula use is that they'll say, well, I have to teach the curriculum the way that I've always taught it, but then I'll stuff some biology in either at the end of a unit or at the end of the semester. And it really feels tacked on. So we start very, very early with real examples that matter to the students. And so, you know, there's a limit to what you can do, like when you're just starting the semester, because you have to teach them, you know, some really basic kinematics and stuff like that. But what we do is we rearrange the whole semester so that we get to diffusion in a 15-week semester, we get to it in week 5. And so the students start to see something that is not in a traditional physics curriculum very early, and we can, you know, quickly relate it to things that they know they need to understand, and to things that we can actually pull from research and show diffusion in, you know, real computational biology simulations. So that's, I think, the place where we've done that. One instructor who's taught in the course is a physics education research expert, interested in how you pull in people outside of physics. And so she basically kept polling them, do you think physics matters to you, what you do? And basically, as they went through the semester, they got more and more convinced. And so we took that as a good sign.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. So be relentless and keep asking questions, I guess. So yeah, one other thing that I was interested in from this panel was there are a lot of undergraduate, graduate students and professors who want to start something similar at their institutions. And how does that one go for what kind of topics, how does one start these kind of programs doing those things? What are the ingredients and how should one go about it? Maybe I can start with Ray. You started a TikTok channel, then how did you choose what topics do? Or do you think departments can make that or those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think to really be successful, it has to be something you're passionate about, like, you know, choose, and there has to be a need. So like at your institution, you know, like Greg talked about how, you know, there are hardly any you know, US graduate students, and how do you deal with that? And like, you know, different institutions have different needs, or like in your community, you know, like like in San Diego, you know, we are like, there's a really large Hispanic population and other like immigrant population. And so what are ways we can reach out to them? And so I think like that's one aspect, making sure that what you want to do actually will serve the community that you're in, and your institution. But then also I would say, I think one hard thing is finding the time. And so again, if you're not like really passionate about it, then like there's no point in doing it, because it's time that you're not like given to do. You know, this is like, you know, the Squishy Science Sunday and the TikTok channel, like, you know, I spend like several hours a week doing that, and like nobody's like paying me to do it. There's no, you know, it's just kind of, I'm doing it because I think it's important and it's fun. But I would say like a lot of times if you want you have to be prepared that like you have to start out small and be prepared that like it might take a lot of time and it might take a while to like get things, to get buy-in and to kind of get things off the ground. And like, you know, you're hearing about all these like well-established programs, and those didn't happen overnight. You know, that took a lot of work over a long, I mean, I'm guessing from, you know, and from developing similar, you know, institutional programs. But yeah, so I think like start small. Any little thing you do can have impact. And just think about what things are actually like interesting to you and how, and the target audience that you are thinking about. I mean, even little, you know, well, yeah, like I said, you know, like a TikTok channel, that's something very simple you can do. And it doesn't take, you don't have to commit to a big thing. You know, you post one thing, and then if you decide like, I don't really like this, you don't have to keep doing it, you know, or like if you establish a whole outreach program, you know, start small, you know, we do a bunch of outreach with local grade schools and high schools here. And it started with just one local high school. Their labs were shut down because there was a fire. They didn't have any lab space. So they said, like, can we come like experience labs? And then that turned into like a day of them coming, and then it turned into like a semester thing where they're visiting regularly, and then that turned into like reaching out to other schools and things like that. So yeah, I think it doesn't have to be big. Any little thing helps.
Start small. Greg, do you have things to say for Frontier Science program? How did that started? How does one do that?
Yeah. So there are sort of two things. The Frontiers in Science program. So that was actually started by Dr. Chung. So it wasn't me originally, but it was part of the outreach component, the education and outreach component for the center grant. And that was renewed again in 2020. And so it is one of the larger aspects of the outreach and education for the center. So the key thing whenever it comes to undergrad experiences like this is the money. Like it is also a huge amount of time. So I very much agree with Ray about just how time consuming these things are, and you do have to care about it. I would say that my summers are more hectic than my semesters typically. But once with money, with some way of paying the students, then the key becomes building a cohort and ensuring that they interact with each other. Because really what you want is for them to have a sense of support and excitement that is sort of self-generated, as well as the interactions with their mentors. And so what you need in order to replicate FIS, which I do think is possible, you do need to have a relatively large collection of graduate students and postdocs to draw from, and you do need the money to be able to pay the students. Beyond that, though, it's mostly self-driven. Like once you make the pairing and you ensure that they're working together, really there's not a lot that I need to do whenever it comes to actually directing the research. The mentors themselves are also really motivated to get it done. They all care about the work that they're doing, not only on the scientific side, but on the outreach side as well. And so we've had a lot of success with that. I'd also say that whenever it comes to high school outreach, the way that I got involved, actually, I didn't answer your original question about how I got involved with any of this outreach stuff to begin with. Weirdly, so I'm at the University of Houston. Weirdly, I grew up in Houston. I'm the only professor that I know that actually ended up where they started. And that wasn't intentional. But what it does mean is that I know a lot about the landscape of high school education in Houston and how essentially financial indicators affect the quality of education in Houston. So I care a lot about it. The way that I got involved in high school outreach, though, is just start saying yes a lot whenever it comes to other people's outreach efforts. At this point, there are 5 or 6 people at UH that trust me to show up to things, and I can trust them to show up to things as well. And that's really key, is it's not just me up there saying that, yeah, you can do this and biophysics is fun, but instead, you know, giving students from other departments the opportunity to talk about how, you know, their interdisciplinary work can be related to, you know, physics, biology, chemistry, any of these things.
Thank you, Greg. Lorna, do you have something to add?
Sure. I guess I'd sort of ask the question in a slightly different way. I think Sarthak, you asked how do you get into it, or how do you get it started? And for me, another equally important question that I think Ray and Greg have touched on is how can you keep going with it, given the time, energy constraints that it takes. So I'd advise people to think about how to make, if there's something you're really passionate about, how can you ensure it's sustainable? It's got a lifetime, it can continue. So for me, for the MakerKit project, we've been developing a way to embed it within our degree program so that our undergraduate physics students are creating the MakerKits. So they're the ones that are coming up with the new ideas for the kits that we're then taking out into the public. So this is just an example from 2 years ago, actually. This is Josh Watt. So he did a standard research project where he learned about rheology and used it to look at the mechanics of hydrogels. And then he 3D printed a device that allowed people to look at the diffusion and the directed movement of particles towards drug delivery. That was something that he was really interested in. So if there's a project and you want to develop this this workforce, that I can't remember the word that Greg mentioned, if you want to have this team of people behind you to deliver the project, think about how you could do that in a way that perhaps your institution will look upon favorably. So is there a way to develop your curriculum so that the undergraduate students can be part of it? I'd encourage you to do that. And then also to work in partnership with organizations that are amazing. And so for me, that means leaving the usual STEM university arena because I want to engage with the public. And so we work with charities, we work with organizations in the UK like the National Saturday Club. So they attract creative young people that want to meet on a Saturday morning to explore something. And so we're embedding some of our biological physics into those activities. And the organization, they lead everything. We just come along and share some of our science and some of our creativity-led approach to do that science. So think about how you're going to build your team to make your project sustainable. That would be my tip. Yep.
Thank you, Lorena. Lisa, do you have anything to add? How does one start?
So I don't think that the curriculum stuff really applies to this question, but I can tell you what we have at MSU that's more outreach oriented. So we have this science festival that's been going on for, I don't know, almost 10 years, was a kind of interrupted during COVID. And it's modeled on the science festival that happens in New York. It's evolved quite a bit. And so there's an entire infrastructure that you can basically just say, I'm a faculty member, I would like to do this. I'm sure student groups can do it too. And so that they give you basically a venue where you don't have to go and recruit anybody. There's an expo and you can make your demo and people show up. And then the other thing that the physics department has at MSU is for probably 30 years, maybe 40 years even, we've had something called Science Theater, which is a completely student-run group that goes and does demos at schools. And it's a lot of the traditional physics, but it evolves with the students as they come and go. So I had an undergrad who was like president of it a long time ago. His outreach effort was, Michigan is, got this lower peninsula that everybody knows, and then there's this mysterious place called the Upper Peninsula that nobody ever goes to. But he was from there, and so he basically dragged the entire Science Theater to the Upper Peninsula for like a week-long trip over spring break, and so suddenly met with groups that he had never seen this before. So, I think that's the way to keep things sustainable, is if you can build it into your university's outreach effort. And then I guess the last thing I should mention is that, my most recent NSF grant, our broader impacts was, okay, we're going to take this curriculum and make a outreach project out of it. And that was extremely well reviewed. So any place where you can say you're going to do genuine outreach, and here's the example, The NSF seems to love that right now. So.
Oh, that's fantastic to know. So thank you so much for all of your suggestions and like expertise with these things. I really learned a lot. I will open the platform to the audience. If anyone have questions now to ask to our panel members about things we discussed or have any curiosity, please ask away.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I think all these examples are super inspiring. I'm curious to know how you track or assess the effectiveness of the outreach activities. In some cases, it might be easier than in other cases. Like if it is SOCNAS, I know how you can measure that, but for a TikTok video or the maker, how can you track the effectiveness?
Lorna, you want to take one?
Sure, that's a really brilliant question, and it's something we are still trying to understand for our project. What I can tell you is, well, I'll quickly tell you what we tried and absolutely hasn't worked. So each maker kit comes with a postcard. On one side, it has the activity. On the other side, it's got something about the research. And there's a little QR code that you can scan and people can upload a picture and answer some questions. And we thought that would be a brilliant way to evaluate what have they learned from doing this? What do they think about science and making? The problem is no one does it. No one does it. And why would you? Even if you enjoyed the activity, why would you go to the bother of scanning something and filling in all of these questions? So it's really, really challenging because our kits are going out into people's homes. We're putting them in food banks at the minute so that people, when they visit a food bank, they can take a kit, they can take it home. We don't get to talk to people. We don't get to have that before and after conversation that's so important for evaluating what has changed. So I would welcome suggestions from anyone here for ways that we could rethink this, because it's something I'm really interested in. So thank you for the question.
Ray, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, for assessing things like the TikTok channel, I don't really, besides looking at like the number of views, like gaining popularity, I don't really have a good way to assess. I would love to hear ideas. I mean, I think for the Squishy Science Sunday, we're planning to do some sort of like, like survey, but again, I don't have good ideas.
Okay. Kaushik, have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, this has been like a really wonderful listening to everyone. Just for the what Lauren was suggesting in terms of suggestion, like probably how to engage people, like and check whether they're engaging. Like, I think it's a simple thing. I don't know whether that will work or not. I think like, can we have a gift voucher or some gifts or one day to visit the lab for some people through lottery, and then if they submit, one of them gets selected to visit the lab, or maybe a couple of them. Or a couple of gifts, some gift vouchers. I think people then might be interested to scan them and upload their data.
Can I respond to that? Because that's really interesting that you mentioned that. So again, the national context, there's a discussion happening around the ethics of outreach. And so in relation to that suggestion, I think it's a great idea, but we should perhaps ask ourselves, is that a good way to get feedback by providing a reward for, do you see what I mean? Are we going to get honest feedback and evaluation if we have incentivized it it's a discussion that's happening in the UK, this idea of the ethics of the engagement and the outreach that we're doing. And we want to achieve feedback, but what's the right way to do it?
Yeah, I guess like it's complex and it's philosophical, but
Yeah.
I think like even if not gifts, materialistic gifts, how about a visit to the lab? That's probably is not that. A visit to the lab, probably see the experiments, how it goes.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
somebody who is interested, they will go for it, I guess.
yeah. That would be lovely. I think that would be a really nice thing to do. Thank
Like
you.
something like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, that chocolate factory thing. That would be fun. Yeah, thank you for asking the question, Kaushik. Does anybody have a parting question?
Yeah, I have one thing.
Yeah, right, great.
I'm not in biophysics, but I'm president of the Contemporary Physics Education Project, and we work with different groups, and we produce graphics for different different fields. Like we have particle physics, nuclear physics, plasma, and several others. And we would love to work with biophysics. I mean, that's something we don't have anything to do, and we do it at a national level. We actually publish this. We sell it on Amazon, so we distribute it. And we would be happy to work with anyone who's interested in doing something, saying, you know, to have some beautiful graphic on biophysics. I mean, the reason we do it is that when my kids went to high school, they took the same physics that my father did. And it was really boring. The way, I mean, you have to teach it, but and so we try to do outreach to make it an exciting field. And I think collaborating with biophysics would be terrific, a terrific idea. And I would be happy to work with anyone.
Thank you so much, Howard. I think a lot of people will reach out to you about this. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Yeah, I posted I posted it, but I don't know if you've seen the stuff we've done, but we actually do work with professional artists.
Yeah.
Can I ask, is it like a cost? Like if we say we want to make some posters for, say, Squishy Science Sunday, like how does it work?
Oh, well, ours are professional level. So the way we do it, we usually get a grant from the NSF or something to produce it.
Okay.
And then we sell it. And once we sell it, then it becomes then we generate revenue. So each group invests the cost. But we found that NSF or DOE has been really useful for getting funds for that.
Yeah.
Howard, I think
thank you.
I mean,
I am running the next gallery of soft matter that Ray has mentioned, and some of those pictures are very beautiful. Would that kind of soft matter or biophysics be something that you're interested in?
Yes, we use both images and the science. Both, we do both.
Okay, maybe Ray and I can discuss whether some of that could be useful graphics that you could adapt and adjust to use for science.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our website, you can see some of the things we've done.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the way and we try to give a background, so you get a background of the field, and also it's to introduce students. Say, oh, this is what a summary is. Like I did the nuclear physics one, and it sort of gives an idea of the whole field of nuclear physics.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for all the panel members once again for your time and expertise. It was so much fun to learn about all the efforts, and I learned so much in like last 1 hour. Thank you so much once again.